Hi, my name is Matt Deorio. I am presenting the proposal for a company shop to be built at Reynolds Farms Nurseries in Norwalk, Connecticut. The agenda we will be going over today is the need for a company shop, the solution, which is the company shop, the budget, and what it's going to take to put this whole project together from start to finish, the conclusion, and then any questions that are had after the presentation. So, to start off, um, the current workspace that I perform most and all of our repairs in is incredibly messy. There's really no organization whatsoever. I don't have any workbenches. The only workbenches that I have are on the other side of the property. Um, it's dirty and it's wet, and specifically in the springtime, um, when it's rainy and wet, like it always is, it becomes a mud bog, and trucks are a hell to work on. Um, Things get lost very easily. I cannot tell you the number of nuts and bolts that I have dropped and have never recovered. And if they do get found, they're more or less useless. The dirt and grime gets into the threads, and it's a nightmare to put back on. Um, we constantly have to rebuy parts because they're either dropped or they're damaged because of where they're being kept. Metal rusts very easily, and because of that, being outside, I've had to send parts back, and sometimes they're not accepted back because they're rusty. Because of this, we're wasting money, we're wasting time, etc. Um, and it's not only parts that are being rusted. The trucks themselves, because they're kept outside, are constantly in the elements, be it rain, snow, ice, whatever. Ultimately, it's all water and moisture, and it ends up rusting the trucks out. The beds get rusty, the frames get rusty, and over time, those things can't be replaced just by fixing them. They have to be replaced entirely. Next slide. Um, Truck service life is shortened uh, because we can't adequately diagnose problems as they occur. For example, if I had a vehicle lift to put a truck on and lift it up in the air, I could tell right away whether the wheel bearings were bad, the ball joints were bad, um, anything of that nature. But because we don't have one, I have to go out of my way to find a jack, which is always difficult because it's never put back in the right spot, um, and jack it up and check the ball joints and the wheel bearings that way. Like I said before, it's a very dirty environment to work into, or work in rather. And because of that, if I'm doing any type of major engine overhaul, um, and any type of dirt gets into the components that I'm working on, it could be catastrophic. If the smallest speck of dust gets under the main cap of a crankshaft bearing, it the engine's useless. Just a small speck of dust puts a score big enough in the bearing to cause a massive drop in oil pressure, and as a result, engine failure. Next slide. Like I touched on before, rust reduces the life of a truck. Um, when trucks are left outside, bare metal rusts very quickly. Um, I've had jobs where I've welded and repaired the lift gate in one of the trucks, and I left to go home after work. Came in the next day, it was a little damp out, and the entire job that I worked on was completely rusted over. It's all surface rust, but that just gives you an idea of how quickly rust sets in when things are left outside in the elements. Next slide. When trucks aren't properly serviced in intervals, things can get very dangerous. If the engine oil is not changed in that 3-month, 3,000 mile period, you run the risk of basically turning the engine oil into sludge. When it gets overheated and breaks down and is overused, it breaks down and it turns into sludge, and engines don't like sludge. I know for a fact that Truck 2 didn't have an oil change for an entire year last year because we couldn't spare the time to send it out off the property and have it done. And it all just comes back to the fact that these trucks need to be maintained, but we don't necessarily have the time to do it because a lot of the stuff that needs to be done has to go off because it needs the proper equipment to be used, and we don't have the proper equipment to do it. I can do things well enough, but I can't do them well enough and fast enough to make a difference. Like I said before, having a vehicle lift to be able to put the vehicle in the air and actually check that the wheel bearings and the ball joints and other major steering and suspension components are still good will make a massive difference. If any of those things fail, like for example, if a wheel bearing fails, we run the risk of having that truck out on the road when it fails, and if it fails on the road, the tire will literally come off of the vehicle and race the truck down the road. And we don't need that liability. We don't need that injury to the business. It will literally it will hurt the business, and it will hurt the driver and anybody else involved in the accident. Next slide. So the solution is obviously to build a shop. Building a shop it's going to provide a clean and dry workspace, which is key. Clean and dry. Clean because there's no dirt and dust and grime to get into components that I'm installing or somebody else will be installing. And dry, keeping the moisture out of the air as best as possible, keeping moisture off the truck, keeping just excess amounts of moisture and water away from the trucks to prevent rust and other rotting issues. Having a shop is going to make repairs happen faster because I have the proper equipment and the proper tools and the proper space to work on these trucks. I can turn around jobs as quickly as I need to. It's not a matter of trying to figure out how to jack this up or get it into a position where I can work on it so that I'm safe and comfortable and so that I can get it done quickly. Having a lift is going to make things so much easier and so much faster, and because I can put the truck in the air and get what I need done underneath, I don't have to worry about fiddling around and trying to fit myself underneath it and become a contortionist so that I can get to where I need and get my arms and body underneath what I need to get done. Downtime on the trucks is going to be reduced because I can repair things faster. Having the proper equipment, like I said, is going to cause things to be done a lot faster and a lot safer too. Next slide. So yeah, we see here having the correct equipment is going to make repairs faster. It also allows me to make a wider range of repairs. If I have, for example, if I have things that need to be welded, having a welder in the shop is going to make me obviously able to weld them. For example, last year I remember the lift arm on the hydraulic wood splitter that we have broke off. The weld snapped straight off, clean off, and we couldn't split wood for the rest of the day. And we had to wait 2 or 3 days because I had to take that part to another shop, have them weld it, bring it back, and reinstall it. Whereas if I had the proper equipment, i.e. a welder, I could have done it in half an hour, let it cool for a few more hours, then we probably could have even split more wood towards the end of the day, if not the next day, but we had to wait 3 to 4 days to have it done. Heavy equipment that we have, the tractors and the International that we have, those can be serviced as well, and any other equipment that we have for that matter. It's not just trucks that are going to be fixed in this shop. It's not just trucks that are being affected. It's everything that we have. The tractors, the wood splitters, the chainsaws, everything that we have that has an engine or that needs service can be serviced in the shop, and it'll be serviced in a clean, dry workspace. All of the tools that we have can be consolidated into one spot. All of the tool rooms that we have across the property now can be brought into one space, and now those spaces can be used for other things. Storage, what have you. But the point is to have everything in one spot where it can be gotten to easily and can be used easily, and then can be put away and be there the next day when somebody needs them, instead of having to go walk around the property for 20-30 minutes trying to find the one tool that got left out over here when you need it right now, and it wastes time. Next slide. One of the nice things about having a shop is that we can keep the vehicles inside during the winter. The trucks that we have that are diesel are not going to like to start in the winter when it's cold out. Keeping them in the shop, we're going to be able to keep them warm at a regulated temperature where they can be started easily in the morning, and that's also going to preserve the engine life. They're going to need a lot less time to warm up because they're kept inside in a warm environment, which means that we can use them quicker in the mornings, or for any time of day for that matter. And we can also wash them at the end of the day, and we can keep the salt and all the other grime and road rash, so to speak, off of the trucks, and that preserves the life of the truck, the lifespan of the truck, and that will save the company money over time, where you can have a truck that lasts you 20 years instead of having to buy a truck every 10 years because they rust out and they rot out. And as I said before, the small engines, stuff like that, the wood splitters, the chainsaws, the leaf blowers, anything that needs to be winterized can be brought inside the shop over the winter and can be winterized and kept there in a warm, dry spot, so that now we're not having that stuff rust. Now we're not worried about damage coming to those during the winter. Next slide. So the budget that we've put together, or I've put together rather, roughly outlines what we would be looking at spending on the top end of the spectrum. I rounded everything up. So essentially we've got around $7,500 in expenses for the excavating process, the leveling process, and having the cement floor poured. It's critical that we have a hard cement floor poured because the lift is going to need to be anchored. Obviously, if you're putting 12,000 pounds into the air, roughly, in each truck, you're going to want that anchored pretty solidly to the ground. The next step we allotted $15,000 for building materials and contractor fees. I don't expect it to be that much. I would expect roughly around that number. We have experience ourselves in working on buildings, and it wouldn't be too much of an issue if an issue arose to do it ourselves. Next, we have the utilities, the subcontractors, which would come out of the framing contractor. Roughly $5,000 for utilities. That includes plumbing and electrical. Heating, we have a wood stove, and I was planning on using a wood stove to heat the shop during the summer, or winter rather. I wouldn't want to heat it during the summer. But we definitely want a sink, a bathroom inside the building, and we're going to need 220 power outlets run inside for the air compressor and the welder and the lift. And then $10,000 I allotted to all the new equipment that we're going to need. That's the lift, the welder, the air compressor, the torches. I already have $10,000-$15,000 worth of tools on top of the tools that we already have in the various workshops that we have on the property. So all said and done, we're looking about $37,500. We can round it up to 40 if we want to be safe, but I would say that $37,500 is a good estimate of what we're expected to spend. So the conclusion that I've come to is that building this shop is going to save us a lot of money. It's going to save us money, time, and effort. In the long run, we may not see a big savings right away, but in the long run we will. When we can turn trucks around and get them out quicker and have them fixed right the first time and not have to bring them back someplace, it's going to save us money because we're getting it done right the first time. We're getting it done the way we liked the first time, and we're not having to worry about spending excess labor because the truck's off the property. If we take it to a shop off the property, we're going to have to pay charges to have it kept there for however many days that need to be done, and it's not always going to get done in one day. We're going to have a reduced downtime, which means that we can get the trucks back on the road quicker, which is going to make the business more money because we can get them back out to the jobs that need to be done. We're not going to have scheduling conflicts, anything of that nature. And of course, lastly, a clean, dry workshop is going to prevent unnecessary harm and damage to components when they're being installed, and unnecessary harm and damage to trucks. We don't have to worry about them sitting out in the elements anymore. So any questions I'll take now, you can email them to the address on the resume in the final project, and I thank you for the opportunity to take the class. Have a good day.